we're clutching at straws. The big picture here is that the UK economy, it's been, just scuttling along at almost zero growth for almost a year now. That's why the outlook feels so sluggish. That's why businesses aren't investing as much as they were. Consumers feel down. This is what happens when you raise interest rates 14 times in a row. It slows the economy stone dead. And I really think it's only kind of fumes and sort of British determination and resolve that's keeping us out of recession. That is when you get 2 successive quarters of economic contraction. But, it's to have some growth in June throughout the second quarter. April, May and June is better than no growth. Let's have a quick look at the numbers here. So between January and March, that's the first quarter of the year, we grew at 0.1%. This is GDP, all the goods and services, all the transactions in the economy. Then in April, compared to April 2022, we had 0.2% growth. In May, that went negative to minus 0.1%. And that was because we had all those bank holidays in May, not least due to His Majesty's coronation and so on. And then in June, rather than 0 or 0.1, we had 0.2% growth. So in the second quarter as a whole, April, May, June, the UK economy grew at 0.2%. Compare that to 2.4% in the US, where they've got cheap energy. Compare that to 0.5% in France, where they've got nuclear energy. The only big economy in Europe that we can look at with a bit of schadenfreude, if you like, and say we're not doing it too badly, is the German economy, which contracted in the second quarter. But Germany is the one that's really most exposed to the war between Russia and Ukraine, the most heavily dependent
how right is
on
the
Russian
Chancellor
energy.
When he says the world is going through a rough patch?
Well, the world is going through a rough patch. The States is kind of out on its own at the moment because they're fracking, because they got much, much cheaper energy. US households, as I often say on this channel, their electricity costs are about a third of those per unit as they are in the UK. We have easily the most expensive electricity in Europe, despite all our, braying about how great we are with renewables. By the time they hit ordinary people's electricity bills, renewables are not cheap. They're really expensive for reasons I've explained many times.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but is it fair to ask, OK, so last year we had immigration of 600,000 net. You would have thought that would have contributed to a higher GDP, if not per capita.
And I think that's partly it. I think the fact that the government is borrowing lots of money and spending it, that's, adding to GDP. I think the fact that lots of people are coming to this country, 600,000, as you say, way more than before that Brexit referendum in 2016. That's contributing to growth because, of course, it isn't contributing necessarily to growth per capita. And that does partly explain why we haven't gone into a recession. I think something else that's worth saying is that the fact that we have got stronger than expected growth here in June, without wanting to pour water on sort of generally upbeat nature of these numbers, the fact that we have got not 0% or a contraction in June, that means the Bank of England is going to feel less bad if it raises interest rates again in September, something I've been urging them not to do for months and months and months. A lot will be revealed, Pip and Emily, next Wednesday when we get the inflation number for July. Now, the inflation number, as you'll remember, fell from 8.7% in May to 7.9% in June. I've been saying on this show for a while now that the July number will start with a 6. Now, if it does start with a 6, that means it's still at least 3 times the Bank of England's 2% target, but it will feel a lot better than it's starting with a 7 or an 8 or a 10. So in terms of the interest rate outlook, of course, we've seen mortgage rates come down. We've seen rates for savers come down a little bit in the last few days. But if that inflation number next week starts with a 6, then it may be that the Bank of England won't have to raise interest rates again. But this good growth number today will mean that they're more likely to raise interest rates because they'll feel that they haven't hammered the economy into the ground enough to get rid of inflation.
Number blamed on warmer weather in June, so July...
Bit of a stinker.
It could be an absolute washout.
Well, it depends because, for instance, when it's raining, people sometimes they often spend more on hospitality. They go to the pub a bit more. So we'll have to see. Look, it has been a terrible July. It may be that slows the growth numbers down again. But for now, at least, it is a bit of our feather in our cap. When the Chancellor's right, the world is sluggish. for now at least, the UK just is avoiding recession.
Well, there you go. A bit of optimism there from Liam. Let's hope those inflation figures will start with a 6.